Okay, so this is SketchUp, and I actually have a lot of little things open that you won't have open on your version. Um, and so I'm just going to close some of those things here real quick. You might not even have all of these little windows here. These are little windows. You might not have any of these up either. If you don't have anything like this up, don't worry about it. You can find anything you see here, you can find it under Window. So I encourage you to actually go through and open these little windows and see what they are. Okay? And if they happen to disappear, you can always find them again under Window. And when you first open up SketchUp, it will look different from this. It'll open with a template. It'll ask you to use a template, and that's really just a way, it's just an environment. Okay? I usually just use whatever architectural template they offer, and I believe it gives you like a green ground and then a nice blue sky, right? So you can kind of tell what the ground plane is, and it sort of orients you in 3D space. The other thing is I use a mouse. Okay, I think using a mouse is really, really important because you have a middle mouse button with a scroller wheel that lets you, as you scroll it in and out, lets you zoom in and out. And if you're able to hold down on that scroll on that middle mouse button, if you just press down on it, then you're able to rotate. One of the mice that's just a touch mouse, it's like the Mighty Mouse or the Magic Mouse, I can't remember which one, doesn't let you do that. And so you have to actually use some keyboard shortcuts as well. But you also do use some keyboard mouse combinations even when you're just using the mouse, right? For instance, if I hold down the middle mouse button on my mouse and at the same time then tap the Shift key and hold that down, I can now pan around. Of course, you can see the icon changes to a little hand tool. These are functions that you can find on the left here as well. So over on the left, you can find that little hand tool, right? P, or pan rather, H for hand. That'll let you pan. And you'll want to start learning the keyboard shortcuts for these because it'll really make everything so much easier. If you want to orbit, again, you could just hold down the middle mouse key, or you could hit O on the keyboard and you're orbiting, right? So that makes it super easy. Zooming in and out, I find that's just as easy with your middle mouse button, and so I rarely ever come over to the zoom tool over here, but you can use the zoom tool to zoom in and out. On the Mac, and not on the PC, on the Mac you have what's a zoom window, so you could actually create a little window and zoom to that window. You don't have that on the PC. I actually prefer SketchUp on a PC. There are some very subtle differences, but nothing that's going to affect how we're operating for this project. It's mostly to do with materials. Okay, so over on the left here we have a toolbar. Now when you first open up SketchUp, there's going to be a bunch of tools up here. Now these are also tools, just like there's tools here, but SketchUp, for some unknown reason, sticks all their tools up here and doesn't give you this big toolbar, and it doesn't even give you all the tools you need up here. It's actually really kind of confusing. And so what I do first thing is I change some of the preferences in SketchUp before I even start using SketchUp. And on the PC, they're going to be under Window, and there's going to be something where it says Preferences somewhere down here. On a Mac, of course, Preferences are right under the SketchUp window where it says SketchUp Preferences. And so here there are some preferences that we can change. These aren't really the preferences that I'm talking about, though. We're going to be setting up some other kinds of preferences. Perhaps the one that we might look at under SketchUp Preferences is I might want to click on this Use Maximum Texture Size. This would come into play if we were to import a photo into SketchUp, because you can actually use a photo to model off of that photo. So if you had a scan of your project, we could bring that in, scale it up, and then we can use that as a guide for modeling, and that's what we're going to do. There are different ways of doing it, right? You could actually just use your drawing and get a scale, and just measure your drawing and enter what you need to into SketchUp. You wouldn't need to trace it in SketchUp, but I'm going to show you how to trace it in SketchUp. Anyhow, as you're using keyboard shortcuts, you can actually assign your own keyboard shortcuts to various functions within SketchUp. This is where you would go for that. These are the templates that I was telling you about. These are what you will see when you first open SketchUp, and it'll make you choose one. So most people just go for a simple template, feet and inches, and that's generally the one. For some reason, I don't know, architectural design has a gray ground. I don't know. I guess they think architects are boring and dull. So nothing else you really have to worry about within the SketchUp preferences. The preferences that I'm talking about are the buttons and the tools and stuff like that. On a Mac, it's really easy to get to these just by going up somewhere on here on the toolbar and right-clicking and saying Customize Toolbar. On a PC, you might actually have to come up to View Tool Palettes, and there might be somewhere in here where it says Customize Toolbar. But some of the things that you're going to want, in fact, even on the Mac here, is to go up to View Tool Palettes and show your large tool set. Because that's what this is over here. This is called the large tool set. That might not be showing when you first start up SketchUp. I happen to also be showing the Google toolbar. You don't need that. And I've got a bunch of plugins, and so they are shown here as well. Their toolbars are shown here. Their tool palettes are shown here. Really, what you need to worry about is get large tool set to show up, okay? And that's what's going to show you this thing. As far as what you show up here on the top bar, it's really up to you. What I like to do is to show certain things that I always use, and I think they'll be beneficial to you too. So here I'm just going to right-click, and I like to show the icon only. You can show icon and text, and then maybe that'll make it easier for you to understand what it is that you're seeing up here. And I also use small size. It just means that the icons up here are smaller. And if you're working on a laptop, it gives you a little bit more screen real estate to work with. So it just makes them slightly smaller. So I'm going to choose Customize Toolbar. And on the Mac, this is what I see. And in order to affect anything up here, I actually have to come up here and click and drag it off one at a time if I want to remove something. And if I want to add something from this list up here, I can grab it and I can just click and drag it up to the top, and it'll stay up there. Okay, and here's how I just get rid of it. Click and drag it off.
Can you do that on the left toolbar also?
No, unfortunately you can't on here that I'm aware of. It's non-editable. Okay, so so I'm just going to hit done on this. The next thing is.
Can I leave this here until?
Yeah, that's fine. The next thing we're going to do is look at. So we've got the toolbars. The next thing we're going to look at is what are the tools that we want up here. And I think I prematurely closed this. The ones that I like to show up here are all the ones that I've got showing, right? And it's the undo redo. I actually find that can be pretty useful to have those buttons, even though Command Z or Control Z is undo, and usually adding Shift to that is a redo. But I like having the buttons there. This little icon, this little special guy over here, is actually the model info button. That just is a shortcut to get to info about your model, and I'll show how that comes into play shortly. I like showing the standard views. This is if you want to see the top of your model, if you want to see an isometric of your model, if you want to see the front view, and so forth, right? It orients the camera as you're working very quickly, and so it's very helpful to have those. Styles. This is different from the styles palette, but it's also related. This is also a menu of options for how you view your model, and it's very helpful as you're working to change some of these options for how you are able to see your model on screen. We'll look at some of those. This little guy is just the shadows on-off button. That can be found right here. And that'll turn your shadows off and on. You probably don't want to be modeling with your shadows on, but when you get to a point where you're ready, you can turn them on, and that's a handy button to have. These are sliders that determine where your sun is by date and by time during that date. and then various other ones that are less important. Some of these you won't even have, but this one is just showing it's the section cutting tool, which you also see on the large toolbar. But then there's another one here called section display, section cuts that I have up here. Those can be useful because I'll show you why later. All right, so I'm just going to hit done. So you know how to navigate. You know you've got your tools all set up nicely. SketchUp is ready to go. The first thing you probably want to do is open this little window called Instructor. And if you don't see it on the side here, you can find it under Window and then Instructor, which is right down here. I already have it open, so there's a little line beside it. I'm going to expand it, and Instructor is a very helpful learning tool. As you click over here on any one of your tools, over here it shows you what that tool does. I'll stick them side by side here. So here, if I wanted to click on this little icon that looks like a paint bucket, which indeed it is, it shows you what the paint bucket does. It's how you assign materials and colors to various entities, right? It tells you how to do it. Select a material, select a materials library, and see it also brings up this dialog box with it. And this is where you'll find all your materials. Some of these are built-in materials. Some of these are just going to be colors, solid colors. So this is an example, right? Here's some modifier keys that you can use with this tool. So it's telling you everything you need to know about this one tool. And it does this for every single tool. Here's a really great one, circle. You think, well, circle, that's pretty easy. It's giving you a little animation of how you draw a circle, which is nice. And it tells you that it draws circular entities, and it tells you how to do that. What it doesn't really tell you here is something that you'll see down below here. Have a look down below on the left-hand side. It tells you first, it gives you the instructions. Once I've selected a tool, it gives you the instructions of what to do. See, when I'm in my paint bucket tool, down here on the left bottom, it says select object to paint. It's telling me what to do. It's prompting me. If I've got my circle tool, it says, well, the first thing you want to do is select the center point. Okay, so I come over here somewhere in the screen, and I select a center point, and then it's going to allow me the opportunity to start dragging it to the size that I want the circle. And you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner, it's telling me how big the radius is. I'm going to just make a circle this big. Okay, there it is. Done. If you select the circle tool, for instance, you'll also notice something before you actually engage the tool, before you start to use it. You'll notice something on the bottom right-hand side. And this changes based on whatever tool you've got, right? But for the circle tool, it's telling me that it's going to make a circle made up of 24 sides. It doesn't actually make a perfect circle. This is a circle made up of lines. Now, if I were to I don't have to move my cursor down here. I can be anywhere on the screen, but if at this point I want to change the number of sides to define my circle, I can just type it in, right? I can hit 3, right? And then when I hit enter, now my circle is made up of 3 sides, which we know is a triangle. Or I could say I want my circle to be made up of 360 sides. And when I type that in and hit enter, now my circle is going to be made up of 360 little lines, and that's going to be a very high definition circle. So that's another aspect of the interface, that it's telling you what's going on and it's giving you options. These are really the main places. This is really the main spot where you're going to be able to adjust your options. I'm going to bring it to 36 sides. That's pretty reasonable, because every time you add something to the file here, geometry, it slows the file down. So if we had a circle that was 3,000 sides, we'd kill ourselves after drawing 3 circles. The program would start to shut down. Not literally, but you understand. Okay. Let me see here. I've got I've got another file open that I want to start with. Basic drawing is straightforward. If you want to draw a line, you go to the line tool, and it looks like a pencil. And this is intentional, right? It's meant to be very intuitive. So if I grab my pencil tool and I start drawing, and I can just click around, you can see that I can draw lines. Very easy. And it looks like I've created this cool little shape, right? And now to get out of that tool, I'm just going to hit escape. For me, that's the easiest way to finish the line. Okay. And so you can see that I've created this nice shape on the ground, right? However, if I orbit, you'll see that it was not created on the ground at all. This is something that you can get tricked up with in SketchUp very easily if you're not careful. So how to avoid that is draw things on a plane. What I did there, by the way, to erase that was simply just select it, and whatever was selected, I hit the delete key and it was gone. Another way you can erase is just hit E for the erase tool, and then you can just click and drag over things and they'll erase. Right. So how you draw lines in SketchUp, the smart way is to click and start, and instead of, you see how I can draw a line and it looks like it's creating a black sort of rubber band behind here. Everywhere I go, it sort of rubber bands to my pencil, and it's black. But you see, as I kind of get close to one of my axes, orthogonal axes, it snaps and it changes color. So what it's saying here is this is my green axis, right? This is my this would be my y-axis. If I come along here, it's kind of hard to see. Let me draw it out here. It snaps to my red or my x-axis. And so the way that this thing snaps is called inferencing. It inferences. It just kind of knows in what direction it's going. So I know, so long as it's on the green or red axes, that I'm on a surface. Now, if I wanted to draw,
blue, purple?
if I'm on blue, it means that I'm coming up off the page. And I can go down into the page or up off the page, or the ground plane, or whatever. Now, say I want to draw a diagonal line in space here, but I want to make sure that it's on this ground line, on this ground plane. So I don't want it accidentally going up into space. The best way to do that, actually, is to draw this out and then take the erasing tool and get rid of these lines. And then I know that line has been drawn correctly on this surface, on this ground plane. Likewise, if I want to do something like to create this pyramid, well, anyways, let me show you a couple more things here. Once you start drawing shapes, I'll show you how to draw a shape really quickly. So let's look at the cube. Let's start with the cube. You could draw a cube any number of ways. Here's one way of drawing the cube. I take my pencil tool and I start drawing lines, and I kind of estimate. And you see, as I come down here, it gives me this dashed line. Like, it tells me that's where you can click, and then here it'll connect nicely. So that's one way of doing it. It's not a very accurate way, though. See, a more accurate way is to actually punch in numbers as you're drawing. So here I'm going to click, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to say, I want this edge of the cube to be 6 feet. So I'll type in 6 and the foot symbol, right? And then I can hit enter, and now it has drawn 6 feet. And now I'll do it again in this direction. And so long as I'm going in this direction, it doesn't matter how far or how short I'm going in this direction. So long as I'm going in this direction, now I type in 6 feet and hit enter. It draws it at 6 feet. And then as I come along here, inferencing takes over. Now you notice it's not inferencing anymore. It's not giving me that line that says, hey, you should stop here so that you can close off this shape. So what I do is I help SketchUp I move my cursor over here while I'm drawing my line. I just move it over and I touch this end. And you see now, when I come up to it, it gives me that little dashed line. It says, aha, I know that you want to connect there. And so then I just click, and then I come over here, and you can see how like it's like snapping. It's making it very difficult for me not to complete the square. So that's actually good. So then I come here, finish it. There we've got a perfect square. Now this isn't a cube yet, but we got a square, so that's a good start. Another way of doing this is just come over to the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. And you see I've started drawing the rectangle. So long as I've started drawing the rectangle, at any point I can enter the dimensions. Again, just while the tool's active, I can just type in on my keyboard 6 foot symbol, comma, 6 foot symbol, enter, and there it is.
Do the comma.
Yeah, the comma means that you're showing one direction, and then the comma switches you to the next direction. Now, quite frankly, if I don't do anything else at this point, I could even enter a different dimension. I could say 4 foot, comma, 4 foot, enter, and it will still change it.
Do inches too?
I can do inches.
Fraction?
I can do fractions. So here's what I do for entering inches. I don't have to add the foot symbol because the basic unit for SketchUp is inches. So if I wanted to do 12 inches, I just type in 12, and in this case I'm going to do 12, comma 12, and now it's 1 foot square. Okay, so I'll grab a line tool and try that. Let's do a 3 foot line. I'll just type in 36 and hit enter, and it did 36 inches. I could also do that by obviously drawing the line and typing in 3 and the foot symbol and hit enter, and I get 3 feet. Now if you want to do fractions, I could say let's do 2.5 feet. Let's go ahead and start a line and type in 2.5, and you say, but that's 2.5 inches, plus you did decimal. You're trying to make it easy on yourself. Okay, well let's actually do it probably the way you were thinking. Let's do a line and make it 2.5 properly. So we can say 2 and then space 1 / 2, and you can see it right down here in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. And now when I hit enter, there it is, 2.5. So you can enter almost any way you want and it'll do it for you. Okay, so let's make a cube so that we can get into what's really important here. I should point out, as you're zooming in and out, if you find it difficult to zoom, like you're using your little mouse scrolling wheel here, and things aren't happening, you're scrolling, you're zooming, but it's not really working, it helps to hover over some geometry and then zoom in and out, and you'll find that it zooms much easier. It's just a little quirk of SketchUp. Okay, so let's turn this square into a cube. The way we do that is, the hard way is to go back to our line tool and to draw another 6 foot line. Come over here, draw a 6 foot line. Come over here and draw a 6 foot line. And then come over here and draw a 6 foot line. And then come over here. And you can see every time I define, as I draw lines, I'm defining planes, right? Now here's a little trick. I want my line to continue in the green axis. Okay, I don't want to deviate from that green axis. If I move right now, it's moving off the green axis. If I want to lock it on the green axis, as I'm drawing here, as I'm moving my tool, I can just hold down the Shift key, and now no matter where I put my cursor, left or right, it is locked on that axis. Okay, so that's a little trick. So what I'm going to do is, while it's locked on that axis, remember, I'm going to hover over here and see how it just kind of snaps it to that point? And then I just click and I have made my line. So we'll do that again. So again, if I wanted to create a line from, say, here to here, I just use inferencing. That's all I'm doing, is I'm touching on this line and then moving my cursor over, and then I click to start the line, come over here and I touch the end and I move over, and then I click to end the line. And then if you add to that the shift key, it lets you click anywhere. Alright, whether you get that or not is less important at this point, but I'm going to finish this cube, and there you go, I have a cube. That was the hard way. Let's undo. The easy way, okay, the easy way is push-pull. So we can grab the little push-pull tool over here, P for push-pull, and we can just pull it 6 feet, and there it is. We have a cube. Pretty clever, huh? All right.